Hello. This should not take long. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of what this is. I will turn it. Perhaps. Pet people. This is an IEEE to IEEE cable. It has two ends. They are identical. This is not made by Commodore. Actually, this one, I don't know who made it. It does feel very, compared to the Commodore ones, kind of chintzy and cheap. But does it work? Yes, it does. And what was it for? Well, when you had a Commodore PET, usually you would have a disk drive, probably a printer, possibly a modem. The 8010 was the modem. 4040 might have been the disk drive. 8050 might have been the disk drive. 8250 might have been the disk drive. Even an SFD 1001. Or wait, a 2031, perhaps. But this was the cable. You didn't need this to hook up. If you just had a disk drive, this was not what you needed. You needed a PET to IEEE cable. This is an IEEE to IEEE cable. And what would happen is, say you had a disk drive and a printer. Typically, you would take the PET to IEEE cable and connect it to the PET, of course, and then to the disk drive. But then, to make the printer work, you did this, it was called daisy chaining. You would take this end, perhaps, and you would put it, by the way, this one is missing screws. It should have 2 screws, because you don't want these things coming loose. Not that it would do damage, but it certainly could. If it slips a bit, it can kind of mess up your day. Anyway, so you would hook this to the same kind of connector that's on the back of the disk drive, and then you would take this one and run it over to the printer. Now this, as it happens, although it feels cheap and chintzy, it's, well, I would bet 8 or 9 feet long, which is good. Very, very good, because typically, of course, you would be using your machine to do whatever and then print things. But you certainly accessed the disk drive more than you probably printed, and you needed to be able to reach the disk drive probably easier. And the PET to IEEE cables were not typically this long. But a typical setup might have a PET in front of you, a disk drive to your right, a printer to your left. But because you have to daisy chain these things, the cable from the computer to the disk drive may be fine being fairly short. But then you've got to go from over here on the right side, over here to the left side. But this is dandy. So this is an IEEE to IEEE cable. And if you were using more than one device, you would need certainly one of these. And if you were using a bunch of things, you would need more. For example, if you had more than one disk drive. Like, for example, when we ran the bulletin boards years ago, well, you could have disk drives that were device 8, 9, 10, and 11, and there were times when we had that many hooked up. I think at one point we even had it so that we had more hooked up, and there was a way to actually turn one on and turn one off, depending. It's been a long time. I'll have to look into that. That might not be true. Anyway, so this, if you're getting a PET, if you're thinking about a PET, do be on the lookout for IEEE cables, IEEE to IEEE, as well as PET to IEEE. They are necessary. They used to be very expensive. I don't know what they are now. I still have a bunch. I'll have to look online. Maybe I'll check out, see if there's any at the World of Commodore show this weekend in Toronto. Anyway, I'm going to hang this up on a lamp here, because I don't really need it to do something with right now, but I want to know where it is. So I have an old, it's sort of like a bridge lamp. Oh yes, in Canada today we are testing the emergency broadcast system, or emergency something system, on all cell phones and all stuff. And if there was an emergency, of course, there would be valuable information handy. This is only a test, and that didn't go on very long. Anyway, so that's IEEE to IEEE, necessary with a PET or some other variation of the PET if you are hooking up anything more than one device. Thank you for coming. Bye for now.